0.2%, 359 naira with 41 a dollar. Stock market, it's been a very, well, a very nice August, but again, we're finishing the month a little bit in the negative territory. We've done about 32% since the year started. We've had a bit of a haircut. We've done almost 40% when the market was really hot in June. But that's where we finished off yesterday, 1.5% because of a profit taking. We lost 38,000 on the index. We lost 7,000. We lost 36,000. Now we're down to 35,629 on the reading. Take it away and look at our daily average. That's a little bit consistent, but again, if you look at the narrow value, that's much lower, 2.9 billion. In terms of deals, a little bit active. So we can put that on the credit side of our balance sheet. But if you look at the sectoral performances, the banks lost about 0.75%. Consumer goods was down. Industrial goods suffered heavier on Wednesday. Insurance managed 0.3%, a bit of an uptick there. And we're talking about insurance with Tajuddin Ibrahim from Chapel Hill, Denham. He's the head of research. He talked about the alliance, folks getting into the Nigerian insurance market and what trading opportunities present themselves for you and for our investors like PFAs and Ps. Let him unpack that for us at 10:30. Then you see the oil and gas is now about 0.5%, but with that insurance story is very, very key on the day that announcement hit the market. Take it away. Let's go to the over-the-counter NASD unlisted securities market. That's about 1% in the red. The USI index reading is now below the 600, reading 559.14. And the market cap, of course, down below the 400 psychological level. Let's go on to the volume in a bit of a decent day. 8.66 million ordinary unlisted securities shares were traded in 12 transactions. I'm looking at the FMDQ OTC market for the fixed income treasuries and Naira papers. This is a very lackluster Wednesday. That was yesterday at the secondary window trading. Look at very insignificant trading day. 3.9 billion in total for the Nigerian government papers. And you can look at the number of deals for those dated instruments. The most actively traded was the 18th of July 2034, one of the longest dated papers on our market. 11 transactions. Let's look at the treasury bills. Of course, also not significant. 68 billion. We've started the week around triple digits. Now we finished off Wednesday around that figure. Today is going to be a little bit tepid as well, unless any last-minute action is come on the streets. Okay, let's not leave the market for there. We're talking about infrastructure, electricity, and the consumer market. The power sector is a very key part of the Nigeria's bigger infrastructure that we need to fix the infrastructure deficits that we have every year. According to the ICRC Acting Director General, is around 20 billion naira. So how are we going to fix this? And what does the PPP, what you call the public-private partnership, bring to the table? Let's listen to this, a very short interview with Chidi, who is the acting head of the regulatory agency responsible for infrastructure, concessioning, and regulation.
The ICRC is an agency of government that is created purposely, to provide the framework for public-private partnerships, to increase our infrastructure stock. You do understand that we face an infrastructure problem in our country. Our roads, our hospitals, our airports, just name it, power. All of us feel the impact of the infrastructure deficit that we have in Nigeria. Public-private partnerships offer our country an opportunity to partner with the private sector, to be able, to provide this infrastructure. But for you to be able to do that, the public sector has to take to market bankable PPP projects. You have to prepare these projects, do feasibility studies, do the financial model, do all the analysis, go through a very rigorous procurement process. PPPs are known to be very complex processes. So it is recognized around the world that one binding constraint to the use of PPPs is technical capacity on the part of the public sector. So that's the importance of this event we're having today, that here we are building an empowered public service that would have the technical capacity to be able to prepare road projects, hospital projects, and take them to the market. That's why we're very happy. Australia has done very well with PPPs, and we're extremely very glad that the Australian ambassador was here. They're coordinating with us. We have some resource persons from Australia who have come here to share with us their knowledge and expertise. And what we hope is that our country will be able to learn from that. You know, in line with the change agenda of His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, we want to change Nigeria. One way to change Nigeria is to build capacity. Once you build capacity, people are able to do the right things to move infrastructure forward for our country. There's a case in point which I want to, you know, recognize His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari. You know, we have had a situation where, as an agency, we had pressures on us on a particular, you know, concession agreement. You know, the president invited us to a meeting. And the first thing he asked us is, what is the law? We explained to the president what is the law. You know what? You know his answer? Go do what the law says. And if anybody doesn't like the law, let them go and change the law. So it is very, very clear that our president is completely 24/7 committed to transparency, completely, you know, committed, you know, to due process. And if you go to the ICRC Act, you know, Section 12 of it says that any contract consummated under this law cannot be arbitrarily cancelled. So there's consistency in it. And what is more important is that, you know, Channels was here with us about 4 weeks ago, where we committed to Nigerians that we have a program we're doing with the World Bank on the PPP disclosure web portal. So there is a web portal that will be launched. In fact, we're just waiting for the presidency to accept the date to launch that event. So all PPP contracts in Nigeria will be open to everybody. What has happened before, what has happened after, what is the service level. So every Nigerian, no matter where you are, once you have internet access, you become what we call a PPP contract compliance administrator. So you can go to any concessionaire anywhere and say, look, this is what you have signed up to. Have you done it? You can question the ICRC. You can question the ministries. You cannot get a better transparency. And this is what the president himself is totally committed to. So I want to reassure you that on these contracts, there's transparency, there is due process, and there will not be unilateral actions, because those things have a major impact on reputation. You know, these PPPs with the private sector, they work on your legal framework. So the legal framework we have in Nigeria that is under the ICRC Act, the national policy on PPPs, doesn't give you the room not to be transparent. So the law requires you to be transparent. The government requires you to be transparent. The process requires you to be transparent. So I want to assure you that there will be no flip-flops in terms of government's approach to PPPs, because we need the private sector. Our entire federal budget this year is how much? Our entire federal budget is about, I think, between about $7 billion. But our infrastructure deficit, you know, if you look at national planning, look at the National Integrated Infrastructure Master Plan, we need to be spending between $10 to $20 billion annually to close that gap. So even if we took the entire federal budget, we refuse to pay salaries, we don't do anything, we take that whole money, will it solve the problem? It will not solve the problem.
That's actually, it was the acting Director General at the ICRC. Of course, he mentioned power there. That's what we're talking about next with Adim Okwesa from Financial Derivatives Company. Why is energy very critical to the entire consumer market in Nigeria? What the industries feel. We'll talk about a few other stories around that when he gets here.